Well, I was thinking of asking you the question, like, how can we build that innate courage? And I just recalled a story from my favorite book, The Untethered Soul, and
Mm,
it's the dog that has the what do you call it? The collar that buzzes you if you go outside,
the
like the
shock
border or whatever.
collar.
The shot collar. Thank you. And the dog approaches whatever his boundary is, and it shocks him. It's a buzz, and it's really uncomfortable. And so the dog is trained and learns that if he goes too far, that he's going to get buzzed. Well, Michael Singer makes the example. What if there was a really brave dog that wanted to push outside of his boundary and started inching up closer and closer and closer, whatever that border is, and he's feeling the buzzing and it's getting more and more intense. But he learns that if he can push past, he now has the whole rest of the world. It was just uncomfortable, it wasn't fun to get buzzed, but if you get past that, then you have the rest of the world to open up to. But it takes that courage to push against those boundaries and just start pushing them back. Is that kind of how you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it could be a pushback in like what you're saying, like a more physical way or a more boundary setting way. It can also be more of a surrendering, a letting go of maybe how you thought about yourself or any beliefs you had about yourself, about what you were capable of. It can be also an opening to curiosity about yourself, about what could be, what's the potential there. So, and we tend to take other people's perspectives as our own, and then we don't really honor our own perspective about ourselves. But really, that's the most important perspective, is your perspective of yourself. What do you think about you? Because that will actually translate into how people experience you. And so, I think that it takes courage. It takes that next step forward to really examine that and reflect on that in your life. And many people are very scared to go there, but that is like that, like you say, that pushing of the boundaries, kind of taking that next uncomfortable step to the next thing. I think if we just keep not looking at that and not reflecting on our lives, then we just react and we're in a survival mode, So if you want to truly be able to enjoy your life, I believe that yes, the going through the uncomfortable is essential. But then you find, oh my God, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I was making up all these stories about it, and it wasn't like that at all. And that oftentimes I've found with students and myself that that is the case. So a lot of times we have these scary stories in our heads that are kind of running in our subconscious. But when we really look at it, it's not nearly as scary as what we were thinking, right?
Yeah, that's such a good point. I absolutely love that. Your book, Finally Thriving, I feel like you named that very consciously. And there's two words there. It's not just a thriving, it's finally thriving. So tell me why you came up with that title.
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that because it was an insight I had was that, oh my gosh, people think they're thriving, but they're actually not yet. And that includes myself. I thought I was thriving, but there was many aspects of my own life that I just was still anxious about or worried about. And I just didn't feel like that I could ever get into that place of inner peace consistently enough. And I didn't know how to do that because I wasn't truly honoring myself. I was trying to fit into something I thought people wanted me to be. And that was definitely stifling who I was and who I wanted to show people I was, and just even just being like comfortable with myself and being free to be able to express myself the way I wanted to. So that was one thing that I thought, like, I'm not doing that yet. I thought it was, because we kind of tap we get into the foundation of the fitness and the eating, which is important. And that's like your gateway into thriving, right? Because that sets the stage for it. But that's not the end right there. There's more work to be done after that. So that just opens the gates to the next exploration of yourself, which it leads you into that place of finally thriving. So when I decided on that title, it actually came through on a coaching session I had with my own coach. And it was like, yeah, of course, like we're working on it. We're all working on it still. We haven't finally arrived. Will we ever arrive completely? I don't know. But it's just good to acknowledge that we are all working on it together. And finally, we've kind of reached that place where we can thrive now. So I'm giving everybody in the book all the tools from a very practical standpoint, but also some metaphysical stuff in there, because I really wanted to bridge the gap between the physical and the energetic. I just, I'd seen people that were using some of these skills, but they weren't really talking about it and sharing them with other people, maybe because they didn't feel like people were really ready for it. But I thought, I was also seeing an aspect of it that made it very complicated for people. And that, again, kind of takes most people out of the mix, because they're like, that's too complicated. I don't really understand it. So I thought, it's actually pretty simple. And it really translates to everything we've heard from every spiritual guru, ascended master. It's always a simple message. So that came to mind. And I was like, let me make this simple for everybody. Let me make it practical, because this is the way I see it. And so, so I wanted to, I guess, going back to the title is just like, okay, this is attainable. You can do it. You can finally do this. Like, we've been talking about this for so long, but now here are the steps you can take to finally feel like you can bring joy and ease and grace into your life. And that, to me, is thriving.
I love that. That's so well explained. Your book is very holistic. All of your content is very holistic, and it really, talks about all of those different things together, which I absolutely love. But you are also able to kind of separate them out into different pillars. Can you talk about some of the main pillars in your book?
Absolutely. The first pillar is align your mind. And I felt like, well, I'll go through the three first, and then I'll explain why I had them in that certain order. So align the mind, and then connect with your body. And then the third pillar is listen to your spirit. And I put it that way because I felt like we needed to address the mind first, because the mind seems to be such a distraction for most people. And in the information that's coming in, it's really hard to decipher where you stop, someone else begins. What does your energy feel like? What is your perspective actually? What is your default mind? Like, where does your mind go first? Identifying that is really important. Does it go to the negative, or does it go to the positive? Are you optimistic a lot of times, or are you really just kind of down on yourself, criticizing others, down on the world, think about everything that's gone wrong in the world and all those things, which really limits your potential to create more of what you want. But people think that is not an issue. They don't consider the way they're thinking and what they're creating. So our mind is what is actually, it is magnetic. So it's literally magnetic. So you're drawing in with your mind what you want to bring into your a field of awareness and create in your external reality. So I thought that was really important to address first. And then within that, using your imagination, because that is basically waking up your third eye. It's creating your visualization practice. We're taught in school that, imagination is a waste of time, daydreaming is a waste of time. But actually, it's our greatest superpower, in my opinion. And I didn't realize this until when I was going through this, before I wrote the book. I couldn't, I was going through a visualization meditation with my coach, and I could not imagine the visualization. I could not imagine anything. And I was like, what is going on? It's just totally blank. It's black. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, like what's going on here? And so I realized I just hadn't been practicing it. I hadn't been using it, And so I thought that was a very important tool for people to start using, because when you start using your imagination, you start trusting it more. You start trusting your own intuition, your own guidance for what you're seeing, because, everybody's seeing something different, and that's what makes us unique. And so that translates also into your personal expression and your perspective. And I think that is really important. Because, what occurred to me, we all experience life differently, and there's no right or wrong. It's just honoring that within ourselves and not throwing that away, which is what I was doing. I was just putting other people's opinions and perspectives over mine, and kind of poo-pooing my own and discounting it. So what I wanted to make sure that the mind was in there first so that people could start examining how they thought and really take responsibility for both the language that they're using throughout the day and also what they're thinking, because that's 90% of what gets created is what you're thinking and what you're saying, because you're speaking it into existence.